Lord, that we have the privilege to take care of these young kids as they come up in the school system around us. We ask, Father, that you be with those that have graduated this year, those that have been seniors. We ask, Lord, you keep your hand upon them. It has been an unsure year, Father, and we face uncertain times, but we know, Lord, from where our leadership comes. We just ask, dear Father, that you grant us the ability to do what we have to do. Give us the knowledge and wisdom as we try to lead our district and lead our school system. Keep your hand upon each and every one of them. Be with us in everything that we say and do as we try and strive to take care of our future of tomorrow and the children of today. We thank you for all these things. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Todd.
Amen.
Okay, I will call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for being here. And we will start off by standing and saying the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the
of the United States of America,
Flag of the United States.
The Republic,
which it stands, one
the nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
with
and
liberty
justice
and justice
for all.
for all.
With liberty and justice.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any revisions, Mr. Saylor?
No, there are no revisions, and if everybody doesn't care to just go to the chat room and just go ahead and sign in that you were present at the meeting. That way, Felicia will have a record of who was here at the meeting. And there are no revisions to the agenda.
Okay, so first on the agenda, we have recognitions, the class of 2020.
And I'll just start us off by saying that tonight we wanted to try to do something special for our seniors to recognize them as we move towards some graduation activities. I know that tomorrow night is the senior parade, and next weekend is the virtual graduation ceremony. And of course, as everyone knows, we've set a July 31st graduation date, hopefully for an in-person graduation. And I know that the board is committed to having that ceremony if at all possible and if guidelines allow us to do so. So I would just like to congratulate our seniors for a job well done. We had 167 seniors, and we have 167 seniors that will be graduating this year. So we have a perfect record in terms of the number of seniors that will be graduating. So congratulations to each and every one of them. I'm going to ask Ms. Summer Evans, our student representative of the board, to just also say something about our seniors, and then each one of our board members will be reading the 167 names of our graduating seniors. It's going to take a few minutes, but it's well worth the fact that they will be read into the minutes. So with that being said, Ms. Summer, if anything you'd like to say to our graduating seniors.
First off, I just want to say, of course, a big congratulations to each and everyone who graduated. Those numbers are fantastic. And as a student myself, I know that NTI was definitely difficult. And I know it wasn't the ending that they expected whatsoever. I don't think it was an ending that any of us expected. I think that endings, obviously, it's hard sometimes putting them in perspective of a positive outlook is difficult. But I think that the amount of kids that we had in this graduating class, each and every one of them, I believe, are outstanding people. And I think it's important to celebrate this ending as a good thing, because I guess with endings come new beginnings, and I see a bright future for all of them. And I'm very proud of everybody. I can't imagine or fathom myself as a student being in their shoes. It's their senior year was something that they look forward to. It's something that I look forward to myself, and you look forward to for years. As the 12 years seem like they go by really slow, but it got taken away from them really, really quickly, and I just can't even imagine. But there really isn't enough words to put in perspective to apologize for everything they went through, or even to understand or feel how they feel. But just a congratulations to everybody, and I'm really proud of everybody for their hard work. I know that this transition into NTI and the big difference that it made, it was by no means easy whatsoever. I experienced it myself, but without all of the emotions that got taken away from their senior year. And yeah, besides that, I'm really proud of everybody. I just want to say a big congratulations to each and every one of them, and I wish them the best as they continue in their new journey, regardless of what that may be. Just a big congratulations to everybody, and I'm thankful to represent all of them. So that's about all.
Thank you, Summer. Very well said.
You.
Okay, I'm going to begin with the list, and I want to apologize from the beginning if we mispronounce anyone's name. So on behalf of the board, congratulations to the class of 2020. Austin Ray Abney, Hannah Renee Abney, Robert Garrett Abney, Hannah Catherine Adams, James Rodney Adams, Justin Lee Adams, Micah Jordan Adams, Caleb Tanner Aldridge, Abigail Page Arnold, Amber Elaine Arvin, Audrey Lee Arvin, Micah P. Ashcraft, Caroline Ray Asher, Ethan Andrew Baker, Cameron McCoy Barnes, Chloe Shea Baskins, Joseph Dylan Benton, James Sam Parker Bergman, Trevor Chase Behrman, Leslie Renee Bignell, Ethan Hunter Bowling, Caitlin Marie Brewer, Sierra Lynn Brenniger, Gabriel Reed Brooks, Kaylee Elizabeth Bryant, Travis Allen Bunch, Alexis Dawn Burns, Allison Brianne Burton, Brody Kenneth Casey, Jacqueline DeRose Sinners, Andrew Tayton Cheney, Abigail Hope Collier.
Brittany Lynn Combs, Emily May Connor, Jonathan Davis Connor, Tori Elizabeth Crawford, Heather Rose Creech, Holly May Creech, Colby Daniel Dawes, Hannah Michelle Dixon, Haley Storm Dixon, Caleb Andrew Dunaway, Travin Charles Durham, Savannah Grace Elam, Victoria Ann Elam, Kaylee Brianna Gale Estes, Levi Scott Fike, Brooklyn McKay Flynn, William Seth Fowler, Wyatt Dwayne Francisco, Devin Allen Gentry, Austin Nicholas Gill, Corey Lee Goosey, Logan Tyler Gray, Seth Gray, Brianna Jewel Hall, Connor Reese Hall, Courtney Lee Hall, China Faith Hardy, Hannah Ray Hardy, Jacqueline Brianne Hardy, Madeline Tate Hardy, Telemachus Jalen Harrison, Eli James Haskell, Cody Deshawn Hatton, Kalia Tristan Hatton,
Dakota Earl Hatton Rollins, Christian Wayne Henry, David Austin Henry, Brooklyn Desiree Hoover, Kendra Lynn Hoover, Jaylee Grace Horn, Ethan Lane Isaacs, Noah Jack Isaacs, Christopher Logan Johnson, Caleb Sidney Jones, Randall Cameron Jones, Sarah Paige Jones, Sierra Nicole Jones, Brooklyn Nicole Kelly, Joseph Matthew Kelly, Tricia Ann Kelly, Jacqueline Dawn Kilburn, Brittany Nicole King, Donovan Martin Lanehart, Cheyenne Elise Lamb, Benny Adam Lay, Alicia Leanne Lewis, Cambria Lynn Lewis, Jacob Alexander Levin, Ethan James Lunsford, Shelby Murray Manus, James Daniel Martin, Charles Wayne Allen Mason, Seth Curtis Masters, Elena Maria Mattingly, Brian Kagan McKinney, Michael Dalton McKinney, Thomas Bradley McKinney, David Seth Miller, Jordan Christopher Miller.
Carrie Leanne Mullins, Lauren Kennedy Mullins, Michael Chase Muncie, Stevie Ryan Neal, William Thomas Nolan, Dylan Officer, Kristen Nicole Osborne, Brooklyn Owens, Madison Page Painter, Ryan Thomas Pasley, Ashley Taylor Patrick, Colin Octavius Patton, Wesley Richard Phillips, Hannah Elizabeth Price, Kylie Wren Puckett, Lucas Jackson Puckett, Joshua Chase Rollins, Jillian Nicole Rice, Miriam Chambry Richardson, Haley Noel Riddle, Kaylee Hope Riddle, Kenna Michelle Riddle, Savannah Faith Riddle, Sierra Dawn Riddle, Erica Lynn Reifenbach, Christopher Coe Rigdon, Juliana Lynn Robinson, Mary Catherine Robinson, Austin Michael Ross, Daisha J. Rucker, Destiny Faith Sizemore, Callan Faith Smith,
Aaron Stiper, Blake Edwin Stiper, Justin Craig Stiper, Kara Danielle Stiper, Tyler Reese Sutter, Micah Trey Swim, Sarah Faith Thompson, Elizabeth Michelle Tipton, Cameron Kenneth Townsend, Jasmine Townsend, Jonathan Gary, Dwayne Turner, Leanna Elise Marie Turner, Caitlin Brooke Van Winkle, William Matthew Van Winkle, Morgan Walters, Carl Andrew Warner, Helena Elizabeth Lou Warner, Christopher Tyler Wasson, Caden Glenn Webb, Ethan Glenn Webb, Madison Mackenzie Webb, James Garland Williams, Jordan Mackenzie Williams, Joseph Lee Williams, Cole Thomas Willis, Justin Andrew Willis, Emily Grace Wills, Caitlin Faith Wilson, Christopher Dale Wise, Allie Madison Wiseman, Matthew Park Woolery, Ethan Sean Young, Jagger Ray Young. Congratulations to all.
Thank you all. Congratulations to the class of 2020. Okay, next on the agenda, we have a facilities update, and we will start with the construction update on the Area Technology Center.
And I think we've got Jeremy Faulkner with us. Jeremy, have you joined us? No, I'm not seeing him either. I know I sent him the list. Peter, do you want to jump in here and give us an update on the ATC?
I will be happy to. I'm afraid it won't be nearly as thorough as Jeremy's would have been, but we thank you all so much for having me here, and I'll be happy to do what I can to provide you with an update on the ATC project, which is coming along. We had a progress meeting earlier this afternoon, and everyone there agreed that despite some tricky weather, contractors there have been making a great deal of progress. A lot of site work is still going on, but there's also a lot of foundation work, and we should see a lot of verticality on that building in the upcoming month. Shop drawings have stayed very, very busy, and as have all of the contractors there. I'll be happy to do my best to answer any questions that you have about that project. We got some interesting maneuvering we're going to be doing this summer to get the road up to the middle school ready to go once the pedway gets in place. So it'll be interesting. Does anybody have any questions?
Does any of the board members, do you have any questions about the project? Ms. Rhonda, I would say that it has been an absolute blessing to have such a good group of contractors out there. With even all the bad weather this past month, I think we only had 6 weather days, and they're trying to work through some pretty bad conditions at times to try to figure out if one part of that building, if they can't work in that area, they're finding somewhere else to go. And honestly, they're doing a good job. Codell Construction's doing a good job with the management of that process. You also had pictures this week that was posted by Multi Vista. Hopefully you're keeping up with the progress that you can track through the pictures that they are taking of the project. And I don't know if something's happened with Jeremy. He was just online with me a few minutes ago emailing. So I don't know if maybe something's come up, but we do appreciate the job that everybody's doing. So that's it for the update, Miss Rhonda.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have a pay application, number 009.
And Jeremy, I don't know if you can pull that up for us, just so we'll have the total amount. If you can share that with us.
I am I'm pulling that up right now. It is 009, correct?
That is correct.
Yes.
All right. Sorry, guys. It's I'm having to deal with multiple screens here.
Okay, and as the board members can see now that document has come up, pay application number 9 is for $582,983.19. That has been reviewed by Codell and of course by Ross Tarrant, and they have approved that application for payment. And my recommendation to the board would be that you approve that pay app.
Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve this pay app.
Thanks, Donna. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Sheila. Any discussion? All in favor to pay, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? And I think as prior, the last meeting, we'll go in and,
I think what we can do, Rhonda, is just put one yes, and we'll just take them by each vote. So just, if you just type in one yes, then each of you all, I believe it was a unanimous vote. So if you just type your vote in, we'll move on to item C.
okay. So next on the agenda, we have change orders 3-2.
Peter, I know that with Jeremy not being here, do you want me to go ahead and take those?
I tell you, Jeff, I don't have them up in front of me. I was expecting him to be here as well, and I'm not really sure, sometimes they package those up a little bit differently from the last time that we sent them. So I'll be happy to answer questions as I can.
Yeah, I think I have those four. There's 4 change orders that's involved in that group of change orders. All of them are deductive change orders, which means that they are credits to the board. So these change orders are not costing you any money. It's money that's being returned to the project. And it has to do with the retaining wall. 2 of them has to deal with the retaining wall and changes in the retaining wall. Another one of them has to do with a water line that first thought was going to have to be relocated. And it was not, it was already done. It had been done before the project started. So that was a change order. And I forget exactly what the 4th one is, but it too is also a change order that is a credit back to the board. So it will become part of the contingency within the project. And at the end of the project, whatever's left, of course, stays there in contingency. So this is why you hired a construction manager. These are the types of things you see. They work with these contractors to make sure that they want to try to credit everything back to us that they possibly can, and then to make sure that when change orders do occur, they're absolutely necessary to the project. So my recommendation, unless you all have a question about one of them, would be that we would approve change orders 3-2, which again are additions back to the board or credits back to the board.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I make the motion.
Thank you, Sheila. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Brian. Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, I guess this is number 2, Jeff.
Number 2, yes. And your vote. Now, Peter, we can get you back in here on the project you have your nose in a lot.
Yeah. So I think if we are ready, we're going to talk a little bit about the bus garage. Thanks again for having me here. And this week, gosh, it seems like longer than a week now. We have been dealing with a lot of rain, and this site just loves water. But overall, very happy with the direction the project has taken, and we do feel like it's coming along nicely. The pay app you're reviewing tonight shows the project is approximately 25% complete, and they've come a really long way. The primary work that they've been working and completing and still have underway is site grading, site utilities, and building foundations. And so tucked up in there on the hill, you all may not have made your way up the winding road, but there's a little building that's getting ready to come up out of the ground there any day now. So we're really pleased with the progress that they've been able to make over the last month. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Peter, am I correct in saying that the major holdup right now is, I know weather's been a factor, but the major holdup right now is the in-ground lift, and the instructions for the installation of that lift usually is not released until the lift is released. So that's the holdup right now on pouring the foundation. Is that correct?
Yeah, he is, I think that they'll be able to pour the foundations, but they have the information that they need on the lift. So I think they're just waiting to get a time frame on when that will get, that'll get delivered.
Okay.
So they do have some concerns about delivery times, but I at this point in time, John Standifer has not indicated to me that he has needed to slow down on any front. But he does have some concerns about delivery times.
Just for the board's information, I was up there Monday and I actually got to speak to John, and he told me that they were still expecting the lift to be delivered on time, and it's somewhere around June 25th or something along that line. So he has no indication it's not going to be. So that's pretty much where we're at with that. So Jeremy, if you can pull up the pay app for the board, which is pay application number 4 and the DPOs that go along with it. That's the wrong one, Jeremy. Go back one. We need the pay app. That's the right-of-way easement.
Let's see. What that you're looking at now is the one.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to leave that one up and we can come back to it, that way you don't have to put it back up. Rhonda,
Mr. Sater, you should be able to toggle over to that.
can you toggle over to the other one, Jeremy?
I've got it up.
That's it, yes. I'm actually seeing the right-of-way easement. And again, I would hope anybody that is watching, if they'll be patient with us, this is all new to everybody. So it just takes a few minutes. That's it, Jeremy.
Mm-hmm.
Peter, you all reviewed that pay application, so we're good to go, correct?
We did. We reviewed it and we found that it represented work that has been installed and completed and materials that they do have on hand. So we would recommend approval.
Okay, and I do as well, for a grand total of $227,152.82. Again, $227,152.82. My recommendation is to approve that payment.
I'll make a motion, Rhonda.
Thank you, Brian. Do we have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, moving on, we have the consideration approval of special inspections invoicing.
And that one, of course, was 3 yes for you all to record. Peter?
Yeah, so this is our special inspector that is working on the bus garage, S&ME engineers. They're making sure that everything is being done per the specifications and the drawings. And this is their invoice. They are contracted directly to the board, and it's for $5,171.74. And it has been reviewed, and we find that it is acceptable and would recommend approval.
And that is my recommendation as well.
Do we have a motion?
I make a motion, we approve and pay.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Brian. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, that would be number 4.
Correct.
And next on the agenda, we have the Jackson Energy right-of-way easement.
John brought this to me, guys, and I'll step in here. And Peter, I don't know if you would have anything to add, but of course, we have to have utilities brought to the site from the road. And in order to do that, any utility company is going to ask you for a right of way for easement. And that's what this documentation is for. They have to have that in order for them to complete the work. It's just part of the process of the utility construction for the project. So they've asked us to approve that easement, and we just need to get it back to them. They're really desperately needing power on the site, and that will allow that to happen. So that will help them move along a lot quicker and stop having to use generators for power.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I make the motion.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that would be number 5. Next on the agenda, we have our district staffing policy.
And Peter, we thank you for being with us. And if you want to jump off, I understand.
Great. Thank you all so much. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Jeremy, if you could go ahead and pull up the staffing policy, and of course, our first one is the district staffing policy. We approved the school staffing policy back in February. Of course, that goes along with the approval of the March 1 SPDM allocations that have to go to all of our schools. So that, of course, was approved back then. So now's the time for us to look at district staffing, and we'll get that pulled up. And it came up for a minute, Jeremy, and then it went black. There it is. And guys, real quick, if you wish, I will just go through this document and just sort of highlight the changes that you can see there in yellow. And when you look at the top part, the district certified administrators, the big change is, and if you look at item B, which is, or B, item number 1, the first thing you see there is the special ed director at 210 days. And if you go back to the top under certified district administrators, you see gifted education instructional supervisor as item number 6. Those 2 positions have just switched because of retirements here in the office and trying to be fair to employees that have been here in the office and bringing in new employees. That absolutely did not change anything in terms of budget with the Board of Education. It's not an add-on for those 2 positions. Item number 7 is our Chief Informational Instructional Officer. And That is a position that's been 230 days, and we did lose one of our tech people to a teaching job in the district. So in order to be able to pick up the slack, that is a change in staffing as we've known it in the past. That is an additional 10 days to that position, which also comes with a stipend. But that is totally paid for by the reduction of a position here in the district. Go down to item number 4 under B, Certified Instructional. That is the Success Academy Principalship. If you remember, last year that position was held by a supervisor here at the central office, which was a 240-day position. So the change back to 210 days is a net savings of approximately $17,000 to the board with that change in that position. Are there any questions about the certified changes to that staffing policy? If not, Rhonda, would you just want me to keep going?
Sure.
Okay, then over on the classified district support staff, the first change you're going to see is item number 2, and that is the receptionist here in the office. That is the receptionist that sits out front. We had a reduction in our grant funding for our adult education program. That meant that our administrative secretary there in the adult ed program no longer had a job. We had a vacancy out front. So what I have done is I have transferred her to that position. Now that is a little bit of change in terms of the way that job was structured before. Before it was listed as an office clerk for 220 days. This is an admin secretary for 200 days. So in reality, both of those jobs, by the time you look at the days and everything, it is pretty much a mutual budget item. It does not increase the budget of the district in doing so. Item number 3 is a change in payroll and finance upstairs. And we're sort of looking at the fact that, of course, we had a resignation in the accounts payable job back in the spring. And then, as most of y'all probably know, if you don't know by now, Miss LaDonna Johnson is going to be retiring, and she's going to retire effective October 1. So that's why you sort of see payroll clerk listed twice there. And we're going to look at sort of a revamp of how we do accounts payable and how we do the payroll clerk. And both of those positions will be at 240 days. And there has been changes made in the salary schedule for that. In reality, that is probably really close to a revenue neutral change. It will be a little bit of increase in pay, but not a whole lot. I mean, I'm talking about under $1,000 here, but we will have LaDonna with us until October 1, and she has decided to stay on to make sure that we're able to train to the best of our ability. It'd be great if we could have got someone, and we've already hired that position, and they'll be coming into the office here in the next few days because I'm sure all 400 employees in this school district will agree that the payroll clerk's job is a really important job. So we have got that taken care of. There is an increase of a part-time custodian in item number 5, which is a 4-hour position. But with the changes that's coming about with the Career Tech Center and that item, we really felt like we needed to go ahead and make this move. this part-time custodian can be used in different areas, and this person's already employed. But what it also does is allow the high school to hire a full-time custodian instead of having 2 part-time custodians. And hopefully that will help them be able to keep their building much cleaner as we move forward. Special education there, I'm just pointing out to you right now that there's only currently 12 special ed instructional assistants, paraeducators that are hired. You actually have 12 and a half in the policy. So it could very well be that could be a savings to the board at some point in time. Item number 8, and I don't know, Jeremy, if you can, that's fine. I've got it now. I can see it. Item number 8, there is an addition down there at the bottom that's highlighted in yellow. And as you know, with COVID-19 and, you know, we got healthcare workers on our board, 3 of you all deal with different aspects of healthcare. I think it's going to be very important that we have either a nurse or a certified healthcare professional at each of our schools. So this would be an additional position which would allow each of our schools to have a certified health professional in them to deal with whatever issues that we may have. Now, on that policy, as it was posted, I had put on there an LPN or CMA, but we also, as we've talked and here's really good news, and we'll talk about it in the budget in a minute, the school system is going to be able to access additional Medicaid funding for services provided or healthcare services provided to our students. And one of the stipulations of that is that we believe that it may be necessary that position would be an RN. So I'm asking you on item number 8, where it says 1 LPN or CMA, if we could just have LPM, CMA, or RN, and then we will do whatever we need to do to meet the Medicaid funding guidelines that we would have to. And in all honesty, even though an RN, guys, is probably about a $10,000 difference between an RN and a CMA, because an RN has a 4-year degree, they actually pay into teacher retirement and not into classified retirement. And in doing so, that is probably about a $6,000 difference in fringe benefits. So actually you can get an RN for about $4,000 more and have a person that is able to do more in terms of providing services for our students. So I'm asking you, just when we approve this, Rhonda, that we would just note that that change there is for an LPN, CMA, or RN for 185 days. District support at the high school, that position used to be a full-time position. It's now a half-time position that's tied to one of those special needs assistance that we talked about a minute ago. And then the very last page, just some notes on there. A lot of times there's been some questions about how our bus drivers are paid. Our bus drivers are paid, their route time begins when they pick up their first child and when they drop off their last child. That's how their routes are determined. So if you're ever asked that question, you'll be able to know what that is, because sometimes we have drivers that in the past, maybe they'll bid a route and they're actually, they do that because that route might be another hour, but it may be further from their home. So we want to make sure that all of our employees actually drive to get to work. You know, I get to work, my time starts when I get here. It doesn't start when I leave the house. So we felt like, to be fair with our bus drivers, so that we would have a good starting point, is that their time starts, really it starts 30 minutes, it may be 45 minutes. They get paid for a pre-trip that begins 45 minutes before they pick up their first child, and then it ends at the end of the day when they drop off their child, either at school or if they're dropping them off at home in the afternoon. The last items down here under grant contracted positions, this is really just an update. The board has never really approved these grant positions, but I thought when I sort of got here, I thought you all needed to know how we were using our grant money. Title I is $1 million. Title I and Title II is over $1 million. And you just need to know sometime how these funds are being spent. This year it's on 12 teaching positions. We also have the addition of a math coach at the district level. And then we have an additional instructional assistant at Springs. You can see some changes in the preschool numbers there because we are adding another preschool classroom. So that will now be a total of 10 preschool classrooms. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's 4 classrooms that we've added in preschool in the last 5 years. That's 80 more students that have an opportunity to get a head start before kindergarten. Before kindergarten. So that has really been a big plus. And that's one of the things that when I came here, one of the items that the board that was in place at that time, they wanted more opportunities for preschool children. And we've been able to deliver on that. Between that board and our current board, we've been able to do that. And we're thankful for our partnership with Community Action Council. And the last item down there you will see is adult ed. And you can see that there's only one adult ed position. I told you that the administrative secretary position has been cut from that. And you see your gear up positions, no change. And then the school resource officer, as you all know, late last spring, we entered into a contract with Sheriff Flynn to provide a school resource officer at the high school and middle school. And also through cooperation with the sheriff, he provides on-site coverage during the day. At some point in time during the day, there is a sheriff's deputy that will either be at West Irvin for a little bit or at South Irvin. And IPD, Irvin Police Department, they provide that same coverage at Estill Springs. They don't always go in the building, but you may go by there and see that the officer is there in the lot or in the parking lot, and they're just trying to provide a little extra security for our schools. So that is our district staffing policy, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have. But if there's not any questions, I would recommend that the staffing policy be approved for FY20.
Thank you, Sheila. That's okay. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? If I'm keeping track, I think this is number 6.
Yes.
You're correct.
Okay. So next looks like we have the salary schedules.
Yes, this is something that's important to everybody. This is how our staff is paid. And of course, you all approved the salary schedule tonight. That allows Felicia to go ahead and notify all of our employees what their salary will be for the coming school year, which will be for FY21. So I know Jeremy's trying to pull that up. So give him just a second to share that with us. And there's not a lot of changes to that salary schedule. And also, while he's doing that, let me share with all of you all, due to concerns with COVID-19, in the past, we have offered our employees either the opportunity to direct payroll their summer checks. We have printed summer checks, and we've had employees that would come in and they would pick up their checks for July, and August. And with the situation we have with COVID-19, we just felt like that was an unnecessary risk to ask our employees to come in and pick up those paper checks. So if you're asked this question by any of our employees on June I believe it's the 26th, our employees will either receive 1, 2, or 3 deposits based on their contract. Everybody that's full-time, 240 days or more, they'll receive 1 check on the 26th. Everybody that's, I believe it's it's somewhere around the 220 mark. If they're an 11-month employee, and I don't know the days exactly, it's trying to get that straight today, they will receive 2 checks. They'll not only get their June check, but they'll get their July check as well. And then all of our teachers and anybody that's under 200 days, I believe, they will get 3 checks deposited on that day. So they'll get not only June, July, and August. And we have really stressed to them, realize that there is no other pay. You will not get another check until September. So you've got to make sure that you budget that money, and hopefully we won't have anybody that spends all their money at once and then come up in August and they're hurting financially because they did not budget correctly. We have given them resources. Our bank, Citizens Guarantee Bank, has offered to help any of our employees in that endeavor. And if any of our employees need help in that manner for us to help them in terms of budgeting or whatever, they can call the finance office and they can talk to the finance office, and we'll try to help them the best we can. Jeremy's got the salary schedule up, and as you can see there, we'll just sort of float through those pages there, Jeremy. That is the teacher salary schedule. There's really no changes on that second page. If you will go all the way to the next page, there was a couple of changes here, and that had to do, hold up, Jeremy, go back just a little bit. Right here on this page is that you will see that the District Principal Success Academy was added back. That was a $5,000 stipend for that position. And the changes that we talked about on the staffing policies reflected under the next category, the $8,160 stipend for the supervisor, gifted instructor, and also for the CIO, Chief Information Officer, Technology Coordinator. It's reflected there as well. Go to the next page, Jeremy. We also made the proper adjustments to the extended days here on this particular page. So as you know, our administrators here at the central office, other administrators in our schools, and other individuals that have gifted or have extra duties, it is all reflected on this page, and those changes have been made based on the staffing policy you just approved a minute ago. The next page, I think, is probably the page that there was the most changes on, and that had to do with our extra service pay. And what I tried to do here, guys, for everybody to be able to follow a little closer, is that we tried to separate these out to 3 different categories. You have your district positions on the top left-hand side, and those are the positions that are mainly positions that are paid for by the district. For instance, your Gear Up coordinator, your district athletic director, maintenance director, public relations. There is a change on how we're going to try to deliver gifted education to each of our school sites. And you see there that there is $1,000 stipend for a school coordinator at each of those sites. And that is the 4 schools, not preschool, starts at Estill Springs and West Middle School and High School. So that is a change in this salary schedule. And then we have our co-curricular positions. which is, and before we move on, if you go back to the district positions, speech pathology has become a situation where if you're not competitive or you're not on the leading edge there, you're not going to keep speech paths. We are fortunate that we've been able to hire 2 new speech pathologists. And I think one of the reasons that we've been successful in doing so, you go on the KEP site, the state site for vacancies, you'll see speech pathologists. There's a bunch of them opening, and we were able to hire 2. And part of that is that we're also adding a $1,500 stipend because they're going to have increased work due to the new Medicaid billing. So that is a change. You go on down to the co-curricular positions. There's very few changes there. It's just a matter that we have pulled those out, and now you sort of know what the co-curricular positions are, which is band director, academic coach, those types of things. And then everything on the right-hand side is your coaching positions. And there was a few of those positions that we no longer had. We updated a few of those positions, but they are all now showing and correct for this coming school year. I want to let the board know, I know you've seen in some of the reports on some of the school districts that notified all of their coaches that they no longer had a job. And we chose not to go that route. We understand that we had to protect the board on one hand because, believe it or not, guys, those positions right there on that page are over $160,000 of payments to individuals for working with our students and being directors of programs and different things. And if something happens, we don't have sports, then, or we don't have co-curricular activities, then we are sort of in a bind because there is a statute that said you cannot pay individuals for services that are not delivered. You can't just pay somebody and then they don't perform any services in order to earn that money. So what we did with our coaches, we didn't notify them that you weren't hired back. What we did is we told them that we hired them back and guaranteed them only a portion of their salary. There was some positions that we deemed that was totally necessary, regardless of whether or not they had a season or not. And those were your head coaching positions and your band director. We felt like that there was a lot of responsibilities involved with that, whether or not they played sports or not. There's a lot of paperwork that has to be done. There's a lot of checking on students because, Lord forbid, if we had to go through another season without athletics, that has an emotional toll on your athletes and your students, and those coaches need to be heavily involved with those individuals. So we paid them 50% of their salary. The assistant coaches and the other assistants, we paid them 25% of their salary, and that's all that they're guaranteed. They're guaranteed that whether there's a season or not. Of course, if we have a football season, they're getting 100% of their salary. And we met with them and talked with them, and we didn't just send a letter and they got a letter in the mail say, you don't have to pay any longer. So that's one reason you've not, I believe, heard a lot about that, because we tried to be proactive in letting them know what we were going to do. The only individuals on here that really are going to receive full pay, your athletic directors are still going to be responsible for a lot of issues, and they were the only ones, with the exception of some of your district positions that we talked about earlier, that will be receiving 100% of their pay. Let me look real quick. I don't know if there's anything else that really there was a lot of changes on. If you go all the way to the very last couple of pages, Jeremy, if you want to go all the way to district personnel, which is the hourly rates it's this page here that's sort of upside down. You will see at the bottom of there, you'll see the reflections there about the payroll clerk 1 and payroll clerk 2. That's there until LaDonna retires, and then that will clean up. And then the other change we made is we did make a revision to substitute salaries, and that was on the very last page. And we tried to even those out a little bit instead of them being all over the place, and tried to make adjustments to attract quality substitutes whenever we have teachers that do have to be out of the classroom. And speaking of teachers out of the classroom, I do want you to know that at the June board meeting, I will be bringing you new board policy that will limit the number of days that teachers are out of class. We just got to the point that professional development are good, trainings are good, and we want to go to those trainings and be part of those trainings. But I tell you what, we're paid to be in the classroom to teach, and we're going to limit the number of days that they can be out, and you'll be seeing those policies. But when they are out, we have to be able to attract quality people to sub. Felicia, I know you're on here. I don't know if I left out anything. Felicia, of course, takes care of our district staffing policy document. And I don't know, do you know of anything else, Felicia, that I may have left out that we might want to cover with them?
I don't think so.
Well, with that being said, then I think Ms. Rhonda, we're ready for an approval of the district salary schedule, and my recommendation would be that we do so.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I make the motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, this would be number 7. And I think next on the agenda, we have the certified teachers by school.
Yeah, and that is not something that you all have to approve, Rhonda. So you guys, that's for your all's information. That tells you how many teachers we have at each school. It also tells you their funding source. So when you have an opportunity, you want to pull that up, you can see that at the high school, it tells you how many teachers are paid for by SBDM, how many teachers are paid for through Title I. There are some district positions, there are grant positions. There are also district add-ons. It tells you how many special ed teachers are at each school, and it tells you the total number of certified staff. And that is pretty stationary. We felt like that because of COVID-19 and the fact that kids have been out of school since March, even though we've tried our very best to provide NTI instruction, we know that we're going to have some students that are going to be left behind. We've got the COVID slide instead of just the summer slide. We're going to have students that will have what we call the COVID slide. And we just did not feel that it made sense to try to reduce teaching staff when we have a lot of students that's going to have additional needs coming back. So we want to make sure that we're able to provide enough staff in order to meet the needs of our kids. So it's pretty stable in terms of the number of teachers, but that's just for me to share with you for information. If you have questions about that, I'll be glad to answer it. If not, we can move on to the tentative budget.
Any questions? Okay, we will move on to approve the 21 tentative budget.
And Jeremy, I think there's 2 documents there. You don't want to actually pull up the budget document, but pull up the other document that is the smaller document, which is just sort of a budget overview. And Angie, you're with us?
I don't see her listed.
No, I don't either. And I don't know. I thought she was with us earlier. I mean, I can go through this. For the last several weeks, myself, Tanya, and Angie, we've been working on the budget. And again, as I just told you all, we were trying to, our whole goal here was to try to stay as close to staffing as we could in order to be able to meet the needs of our students. And we feel like the budget that we have presented to you, and you all, I'm sure, have looked at the budget itself, and you've looked at the particular numbers that are within that budget. And that budget is just so hard to read sometimes. So Angie put together this basically overview of the budget, and we'll go through it. And then if you all have other questions, we'll try our best to answer what those questions may be. Just remember, this budget tonight that you're approving is the general fund budget. It does not, it is not any of your Fund 2 or your grant budgets like Title I and your food service budget and special ed and all those Fund 2 categories we're not actually approving. It is your general fund budget. So let's look at the top of the page there and really just the general fund. And the first thing you want to look at, what is your revenue? And your revenue is pretty much your local sources. That is from your local property tax, your motor vehicle tax, utility taxes, interest on your bank accounts, which we were very fortunate before this decline hit. We were able to roll a big portion of our contingency into CDs. So we were able to protect the interest on those CDs. I think they were for like, and a lot of our construction money also, we put the construction money based on the drawdown schedule that Codell and Ross Tarrant gave us. We put a lot of our construction money and our contingency money into CDs. So we were able to lock those in right before we had the market crash and the interest rates crashed. So we're going to have some interest income that you would not be expecting. But now when you start getting in the fall, you're going to see our interest income really become zero, because right now with the bank interest rates the way they are, there's no interest to be paid really on hardly anything. But we were fortunate. Angie worked on that and we got it done just in the nick of time. So there's some miscellaneous local revenue and stuff, but in general, we bring in about $2.8 million in local revenue. State revenue sources, and that's got to do with your SEEK funding, different programs that we get reimbursed for, like ROTC, and we get reimbursed for preschool and those types of things. Those are big ticket items that we get reimbursed salaries for. So when you take all of the state revenue sources, you're at about $14.7 million there. Federal revenue sources, and this is the one that right now we have put at $18,000, but I believe you're going to see a significant increase in the amount of revenue that we're going to receive from Medicaid reimbursements. There was a law change last year. The state of Kentucky during the year worked hard on getting a system in place where school districts could actually bill for Medicaid services for our students that were seeking health care in our clinics, students that are receiving mental health counseling, occupational therapy, and those are new funding sources on top of us being able to bill for speech pathology, which is something we were always ready to bill for. If you all remember last year when we added the LPCC, our licensed professional clinical counselor, we said at that point in time, we believe that this coming year we'll be able to pay for that salary with the increase in Medicaid funding that we're going to receive. So that number is going to go up significantly. So just know that that will be additional revenue that we've not put in this budget, but we know that it's going to be there. Let me also talk to you about SEEK real quick. With the SEEK allocation, right now, we are budgeting under what our SEEK forecast is. We want to make sure, and we're trying to make sure of this because we are somewhat worried about possible mid-year cuts due to the economy. I know the governor the other day in one of his addresses said that right now that the state of Kentucky was standing to take in $500 million less than was projected through June 30th. If that happens right now, we're not going to receive a cut to this year's funds. We're going to get our funding for this year. But sometime in the coming year, we may very well face some type of budget cut. So we didn't fund or we didn't budget the entire SEEK forecast as we've got there. We left about $100,000 in SEEK funding on the table there because we did not want to put ourselves in a bind. You don't want to budget every penny you expect to come in and it not come in and then your budget be out of whack. You're better off to conservatively fund your revenue, and then if you get additional revenue, then that's a plus. The final thing there is the $82,000 that we received for indirect costs of operating our food service program. So altogether, you see your funding sources in general fund. Does anybody have any questions about any of those funding sources? If not, I'll go on up to expenses, and you can take this as you read your budget, as you look at your budget. You can take each one of these and you can compare it to that budget, which is about 40, 50, 60 pages long, but it sort of tells you what each one of these categories are. In Munis, 1,000 is instruction. As you can see, $9.7 million of our budget is tied up in instruction. That's classroom teachers, that's instructional assistants, that's instructional supplies. As you can see, that is the big chunk of your budget. 2,100 is student support services, and that's items like your guidance counselors, your nurses, your speech paths, your OT, and those are services that's provided to students. Item number 2,200, which is another $500,000, is tied up in libraries and instructional technology. Some of Jeremy's program and the purchases that we make in technology is tied up in section 2,200. Section 2,300 is district office, and that's Board of Education expenses that we have here at the central office. And if you compare that to last year's budget, as you all know, we've discussed that the cuts that have been made in our budget have been made here at the district office. And any future cuts would be made at the district office if those opportunities exist as we move forward here in the next little bit. But that is your district office here in terms of our part of the budget. School administrative support are your principals and clerical staff within your school. And you can see that's $1.1 million. Jeremy, if you go on to the next 2,500 is business. I'm sorry, Jeremy, that's the last thing on there and I sort of jumped it. Sorry about that. Business support services. And that's, again, that's some of the auditors and liability situations are included in this function. That's your legal activities, your board attorney, insurance, those types of items. 2,400 is school administrative support. Again, that goes back to, I'm sorry, I'm going upwards. Let's go on down. 2,600 is maintenance, plant operations, $1.7 million. And that's, of course, all of our utility costs, custodial supplies. And I really believe that when push comes to shove, that will be an area that we will see increase a little bit this coming year. And I'll give you some good news here in a minute in terms of the federal relief funding that we're going to receive that will offset some of that. Transportation, we continue to see transportation be right about $2 million. That's down significantly from when I got here because of the fact that we no longer have a bunch of old jalopy buses on the road that we're having to pour a lot of money into, but we are having to buy new buses. I think in this particular budget, there's 2 new buses. There's 2 new buses in it, and then we have a partial third bus that's being paid for through that clean diesel grant that we received and discussed at the last meeting. We do provide some food service operation funding in terms of being able to provide duty-free lunches for our certified staff. 5,100 is your debt service, and this is the last year that you will see that payment right there in 5,100. Those are the, I believe there was about 8 to 10 school buses that was bought on an installment plan. And this is it. This is the last one. It'll be paid off, or I guess next year's the last one. It'll be paid off then. We really checked in to going ahead and just making that payment and getting rid of it and going ahead and paying it out. But it just so happens, just like on your home mortgage, when you borrow money, you pay all the interest up front and you're paying the principal off at the end. It would not save us. There's no reason really for us to put ourselves into a financial situation because most of the interest has already been paid on that. It just doesn't pay us to go ahead and pay that off. But it is coming to an end in FY22. Fund transfers, we always transfer money into CATS. That's your technology funding. That's a big portion of Jeremy's budget. With that $45,000 and you all approve the tech, the match that comes along with that, SFCC provides a technology match. So Jeremy's budget's right around $100,000, and that goes to provide some of the infrastructure for technology. And then finally, the last one is contingency. We set our contingency at 1.5 million. Remember, I told you earlier, we try to keep contingency at about 1.6. But remember, as I told you earlier, we did not budget $100,000 of our SEEK funding, and we just felt like that was the best way to go. $1.5 million is still a hefty contingency, and any additional SEEK funding that we will receive will just allow us to bump that contingency number up into the coming year. So there's some other information there. When you look at some of those items, those budgets are not totally complete. The other budgets that you see there, but we talked about Fund 2. Told you that was all your grant money. 310 is capital outlay. 320 is your building fund, and that's where your equivalent tax rate, the 5 cents, that's where it shows up at. The construction fund is what we use. That's bonds that's been sold. That's how we pay for the cost in construction. Then you got your debt service fund. That's also payments for your bonding. And then, of course, Fund 51 is your food service. But hopefully that gives you an overview of what the budget looks like. It's a good budget. It pretty much holds steady in terms of where we're at right now. Probably a big increase in that budget was there was some retirement increases, and there's also some increases in terms of always your step increases where teachers, receive an incremental pay raise. All of our employees do on a yearly basis. But those were pretty much offset by the retirements that we had in our district. So it's a good budget. Angie's worked hard on trying to go through that budget. And we've, like I said, for the last month, we have really been monitoring where we're at with that budget. And I feel very confident to recommend the passage of that tentative budget for the FY21 school year. If you got any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Brian. Do we have a second?
A second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, I think this is number 8.
And Rhonda, while everybody's doing that, let me go ahead and I will tell everybody some good news in terms of budget. Of course, we know that there's an economic downturn. We know that there's going to be possible mid-year budget cuts. So how are we going to be able to offset some of that? Well, the good news is that through the CARES Act that was passed by Congress and the COVID-19 relief bill that came from the House and Senate at the national level, as a school district, we're going to receive somewhere close to $1.2 million in relief funding. Now, that's not going to be money that we're going to just rush out and spend, because we have to realize that a lot of people are looking at FY21 only. And there's a lot of things that go into this. I think our federal money, I know Lisa's on here with all of our title funding right now and projected title funding, and she can correct me if I'm wrong. There has been very little cuts to that funding. And right now we're projected to, we're okay. But I do think we'll see some funding cuts. I think we'll see some mid-year cuts. And we cannot be short-sighted here worrying about FY21, because the year that I really worry about is not next year budget-wise. I worry about FY22. And that $1.2 million does not have to be spent tomorrow. We have until September 30th of 2022 to spend that money. So we're going to be very careful about, if we need it, if there's items that we need to meet the needs of our kids and community because of COVID-19, of course, we're going to spend it. But we're not going to be frivolous with it. It's been given to us. I've always said we need to be good stewards of the money that we're given. For instance, $160,000 of that $1.2 million is for technology and food service expenditures. That's going to allow us to purchase our one-to-one computer devices with federal money, which will allow us to save that $125,000 or a part of that $125,000 that you just approved in one-to-one technology for our one-to-one program. So it's going to allow us to save $100,000 in that area. So that's going to be huge. That's $100,000 that is sitting there that's going to offset problems that we're going to see in FY22. So as a board here, what I'm telling you, and as a board team, we not only need to be focused on FY21, but let's also keep FY22 in focus as well, because we have to be able to function and be able to meet the needs of our kids 2 years from now as well. And there may not be more federal money. This was a $3 trillion rescue package. And honestly, I don't know where that 3 trillion is coming from. I don't know, there's talk of another 3 trillion. I'm not going to bet on that money until we actually see it. So it's great news to know that we've got a $1.2 million buffer, but also know that doesn't mean that we just got a new shiny nickel and we're going down to the dime store to buy some candy. We've got to make sure that we take care of that and be good stewards of it. So it's good news on that front, but we'll make sure to keep you all up to date. Thank you all.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have a long list of consent items.
Yeah, most of these, I don't know which ones of these you may want to see, but we'll just go down through each one of them here. We know that you've got the minutes that we always approve, the treasurer report, payment of bills, those were posted. You also had the attachments for food service. That's a yearly thing where we have to approve the procurement certification, the intent to participate, and indirect cost. And I believe that approve intent to participate, I may be wrong. No, Belinda's on here. It may be with our CI, our community eligibility option for all students to eat free. Item D are 4 revised job descriptions. And those are job descriptions that we felt like that we needed to revise, and there was some things that needed to be done. And that was based on some employee actions during the past year. And we wanted to make sure that those items were covered in those job descriptions. Especially the number one item in each one of those is our employees have to show up to work. And we have some people right now that I would be honest, I will tell you, there's some disgruntled people out there because they were not renewed because they choose not to work. And you may have heard from some of them, and just know that unless you all tell me different, our philosophy is that we hire people to work for our kids. And when they don't show up to work, it makes it hard on our kids and our staff, and it hurts the achievement levels that our kids are able to achieve. So if people don't work, we're not going to keep them employed. So we wanted to make that revision. And also we made some revisions in the paraeducator job description, especially for those paraeducators that work in an FMD unit. We need to make sure that those people are able to perform those extra duties that are needed there. Item E was an adult education reduction. It's an email that's telling us that we're going to receive a reduction in that funding. Thus, that's why we made the change at the receptionist here at the central office. And we should have that budget for the next meeting. 3 of the next 4 items is mental health counseling, the New Vista MOA, the Mountain Comprehensive Care Center agreement, and the MindSci Psychological Services agreement. Those are all mental health. We've got the JAGS MOU. That's a grant at the high school, and we're going to continue that program. Item J is the SFCC offer of assistance. We brought item K back to you all because the Irving Community Television contractor that we listed last time, Jeremy, it was either 3 years and it should have been for 5, or it was 5 years and it should have been 3. Which one was it?
When we were talking about it, of course, anybody can go back and verify this. The board approved for 5 years, but when it was listed on the minutes, it showed 3. And we just wanted to make sure that for legal purposes that the board did approve the 5-year contract. And the only 2 options that were even submitted was a 5-year and a 10-year. A 3-year wasn't even an option.
And it is a good contract, and so we just wanted to make that clarification there today.
Yeah.
Probably
also,
the biggest.
If you don't mind, let me interject there real quick. We will say that any contract that is over $100,000 for the lifespan of the contract, KDE has to approve. And as part of this, that's on this particular thing that you're approving tonight, there was a couple of addendums that KDE required be added to that contract. Jim Hayes at Urban Community Television has added those. KDE has approved, and that is on the documentation that you're approving tonight. They're I guess, legal jargon. Mr. Shaw could probably even elaborate on that if he wanted to, but it's something that is required on any and all contracts by KDE. So it's just we had to have it as part of the public record.
And Jonathan, I know you're with us. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, not unless there's any questions.
Okay. I guess item L is the first thing that we would want Jeremy to pull up, and these were the alternative school calendars. And let me tell you all, I know there's some worry out there in our school district about the start of school. We approved a calendar that reflects the calendar that we've always had that we start school around the first week of August. And within the last few weeks, as guidance has started coming out from KDE and from the governor's office, the governor has asked us to look at if things went well, if there is a huge decline in the virus, and it is thought that it would be best for us to get back into school early in order for us to be able to complete a number of days with an anticipation that sometime late fall, early winter, that there might be a break in school attendance due to an increase in COVID-19. They asked us to look at a early start schedule. Well, that is the schedule that Jeremy brought up right there. And basically that schedule would be that we would start school for teachers and students. For teachers, it would start on July the 20th, and the first attendance day for students would be July 23rd. Now, let me go on record and tell you all, I do not believe under any circumstance, unless we receive a mandate from the governor or from the Kentucky Department of Education, I do not believe that that is feasible for us to try to do. There's a couple of factors here. Regardless of whether or not you want to say that students have been out of school since March, sometimes completing this NTI work was not easy. Students and parents are tired. You know, they're not used to having to do this work and having to stand over top of children to get them to do their work and stuff. And I do think there is something to be said about they need a break. Also, as you know, our parents and families, they plan vacations long ahead of time. So there's a lot of people that have vacation plans maybe already scheduled for that time. And I just feel like that we need that time in order to recuperate. And then the final item is that we've got a construction project going on that is scheduled based on the fact that we're starting school the 1st of August. If we try to start 2 weeks before that, then we're going to actually put a bind in that construction schedule. And I just don't feel like that this is a good idea. We were asked to bring it to you, but I'm telling you, I would never recommend that happen unless we're mandated to do so. I do think the next calendar option is an option that you all need to be familiar with, because I do think there's a possibility, and this is a greater possibility, that they're going to tell us in order for school to safely start, we're going to have to delay the start of school to around Labor Day. And that's what this calendar reflects. I would tell you that this calendar, in my opinion, has a better chance of happening than, than the other one ever did. But this is what it would look like if we waited until around the 1st of September to begin school. We would actually begin school the week before Labor Day. And if we were to do that, we could actually complete a school schedule using NTI days by May 31st. So it is possible for us to actually finish a school year by starting that late. But notice what happens. You do not have a full fall break if we have to start at Labor Day. There's no way you can start school that late and have a full 5-day fall break. You do not traditionally get the Wednesday off before Thanksgiving. You do not get a full 2 weeks of Christmas vacation. You do not get a full spring break in that calendar. There's no way you can put your time in and still have those full breaks. That's why we start the first week of August, because everybody has come to love a full week of fall break, 2 weeks off at Christmas, and a full week of spring break. But if worse comes to worse and we have to go with a delayed start, this is what that calendar would look like. I guess they're under consent, but I would ask you not to even consider option 1, which is the July start date. As a matter of fact, I would want the motion to be that we would just pull that one out. And just know that we have that schedule if we have to do that. But unless we're told to do it, I think it's out. So I would ask you to approve the late start date only. Does anybody have any questions about that calendar? Or either calendar?
I'm sure, Mr. Saylor, that, given the opportunity to try to do the right thing here, sometimes it's just beyond our control, just like this has been. And I definitely agree with the late start. I've never been the biggest fan of a fall break anyway, unless that I can get off work. So, sometimes that works to your advantage, sometimes it doesn't. So, but I think as far as the NTI days, you were talking about using those. So what's the possibility of us using those when there is per se like, a snow days, and and I kind of got thinking about this last night when I was looking at the stuff we're going to discuss tonight. So is there an opportunity, I look back on this, maybe this is the best thing ever to get us prepared for NTI days. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know if something like that could be used for snow days as well, or is that kind of out of the scope? Or I'm just trying to think of other ways that could help us with making these things up. And I'll shut up and let you talk.
Well, no, Brian, that's a good point. And I know that we've had so many NTI days because of COVID-19. We had the approval of the emergency NTI days, which we had 40 of those. And it sort of got lost in the mix. And just to remind the board, I believe at the last board meeting, you approved NTI days for FY21. So under what was the original NTI program, you approved that at the last board meeting, which allows us to take up to 10 snow days and have NTI days and not lose actual school time. So that is approved, and you all approved that last time. So if we were in a normal school year and the only NTI days we have are those 10 days, we do have those available now. And you're right, Brian, this got us ready for NTI, where in the past we had not considered NTI. We did teacher staff work days, but our students, we got credit for those days, but our students sat home and they didn't do anything. Now we've just basically, we're doing the same thing, but now students will be working on those days. So it's going to allow us to do that. So you're right on track. We do have 10 NTI days approved. And as we get into the school year, at this point, only God knows if we're going to have more COVID-19 days that we're going to have to use, because there's all kinds of scenarios out there as to how we're going to start a school year. Whether we're going to start on time, whether we're going to start on time with some type of alternative schedule where we reduce the building size every day. Maybe you go on an A-B schedule, half the kids come on one day, half the kids come on the next day. We could absolutely, if there's a spike in COVID cases, we could actually start the school year on NTI again. Lord forbid if we have to do that, but if that's what we have to do, that's what we'll do. But those are in addition to the 10 other days that you have approved already. So we do have that at our disposal. Anyone else? If not, the last big item under consent was to renew your property insurance and your workman's comp. Property insurance went up about 6%, which is basically what they're seeing across the statewide at this time. It's still really reasonable. And we were also, when we approved our workman's compensation insurance at the same time, our workman's comp insurance is actually going to go down to offset some of that increase. So overall, our property insurance is going to renew at about a $10,000 increase. So it's not a huge increase. We've really went through that with a fine tooth comb to make sure that we don't have a lot of property that's listed and we don't own vehicles listed, those types of things. So we feel like that's a pretty good policy that's been presented for you to approve. And if there's any other questions, Rhonda, I'll be glad to answer them. But if not, my recommendation would be that we approve those consent items.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I make a motion.
I second.
Any discussion? And that motion is, Jeff, to pull that first calendar, correct?
Yes, pull the first calendar. It's for the late start only, and we'll pull that first calendar out of there, Felicia, and you can make a note of that in the minutes.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, this will be number 9. And next on the agenda, we have public comments.
I think we got a couple things going on here. I think Jeremy posted a link for anybody that wanted to submit a public comment. And I don't know if there's been any of those items. Also, for the next few minutes, if anybody wants to call the board office, the telephone number here at the board office, which is 723-2181. If there's any questions, Miss Felicia can pick up that line. So we'll give it just a second to see if there's any comments. Was there any submitted, Jeremy, online?
No, sir, there was not. If you'll hold on, I will share the, just to show. I literally, right when you went, announced that, I closed off the questions. Let's see if I can. As you'll see, we have 0 responses.
Okay, and then for the next few minutes, Rhonda, if it's okay with you, we'll leave the phone line open. If anybody does call in, we can respond to them at that point in time. And I would also tell anybody in the public, if you have a question about anything that went on in a board meeting and you need some type of clarification, and you don't want to go back and look at the entire video, all you would have to do is email me here at the office and I will respond to you in a timely manner, the best that I can. Just for clarification purposes, I will be social distancing and working from home tomorrow. And then, of course, the entire board office, this is Memorial Day weekend, so the board office will be closed tomorrow afternoon, sometime around 1 or 2 o'clock. We'll be closing the offices here, and we'll be off until Tuesday morning. So we want everybody to know that the board office will be closed. Jeremy, I would ask that you would post a Memorial Day message to social media and let everybody know that we will be closed until Tuesday morning, starting tomorrow afternoon.
Yes, sir. I went ahead and just for the purposes, just in case, I went ahead and turned the responses back on just for the next few minutes, just to see if anyone does happen to want to submit a last minute question.
Okay. Thank you, Jeremy. Okay, next on the agenda, we have the superintendent's report.
Yes, in general, again, these are just non-action items for your all's information. You have the notification of personnel actions, and those will pick up here during the next few days. The next one, I think, is the one in June that has most of your placements in terms of any changes and everything. Felicia will be preparing that document for you all. But there are several notifications this time. We have one employee that still is on MOA with KDE. You have the email on that information for you all again. The workplace ethics is a program that was passed by the legislature and went into effect now for this year's classes. And we've listed 4 documents there, I think, for you all to just review. And it talks about the ACE Navigator program and what that program is in terms of the ILP. It also talks about, so I won't leave you all sitting here, the ILP, we're terrible for using acronyms. Individual learning plan that discusses items that are important for students. They move on either to a post-secondary education, or if they move forward in the world of work. So that program allows students to work in specific areas, and there's a lot of good things that go along with career building. And, there's a lot of career interest inventories that's within those programs. And then you've got a document there from the middle school and the high school, how they have implemented that. And that is part of the graduation requirements for students to do that. And I just wanted you to see that we actually have a program in place. It's a district-wide program in order to implement those mandates by the state legislature. Item D is the class of 2020 year in events. Again, just a reminder, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock is our senior parade, and the parade route has been posted. And we do ask that all of our graduates, they know what the requirements are in order for them to participate. We're asking for all of our community to come out and support our seniors where possible. If you can remain in your car and you can send the seniors off, that will be great. If you are outside your car, just a reminder from local public health officials and members of local government that you need to properly social distance. Again, I'll be like our governor. I would suggest that if you're in groups and there are people near you, I would ask that you would wear face covering. It's not so much sometimes to protect yourself, but to protect others. So let's please try to give our seniors a big send-off with their parade tomorrow night, and come out and support them. Next week, starting on Wednesday, our virtual graduation will be filmed over 4 evenings, and a special thanks to WBON. They've committed a lot of resources. Yes, we're going to pay a fee in order to make that happen, but listen, for what they're doing, we're paying pennies on a dollar to probably what it would cost us to do that. And I'm thankful for them for being a good partner with us, the people at WBON, and they'll be filming that. And I know board members, I'm supposed to tell you all that next Saturday evening at 6 o'clock, put on your Sunday best, because each of you all will be asked to give about a approximate 1 minute send off to our seniors that will be included in that virtual ceremony. And once filming is through next Saturday evening, then that video will be made available. I believe it is on June 12th. It's supposed to be posted to social media, and all seniors will receive a copy of that. And again, for our seniors and our parents, there are specific guidelines for you to follow in order for us to social distance. Once you enter the high school, face masks are required to be able to enter any of our buildings right now. You're supposed to have face masks and temperature checks. There'll be some things that you'll be asked to do, but all the seniors will get to go across the stage. They'll get to hear their name called. All their awards will be announced. They'll take a picture with their diploma. They're actually going to receive their graduation program that's dated for July 31st, but all of our seniors will get a more formal graduation program than what will be presented on the night of the 31st for a keepsake. I know the board wanted to try to do that was going to happen regardless of COVID-19. We were looking at trying to print a more professional program and try to have a more honorable, dignified graduation ceremony. So we'll be providing those, and there'll be opportunities for some pictures to be made down in the gym lobby. Mr. Yost and his staff, they've done a fantastic job of organizing that. So please make sure that you follow those directions. And then, of course, as I said earlier, July 31st, 8 p.m., Hoover Knee Stadium. We are committed to having an in-person graduation ceremony. We may have to limit the number of adults that can attend, or I don't know what the guidelines or stipulations may be at that point, but I know as a board, we're committed to doing that. Our seniors have had so many things taken away from them. This is one thing we want to try to do to make sure that they at least are able to have an in-person graduation. I noticed last night Scott County is going to take after us as well. They've set July 31st as their graduation date as well. So I think a lot of school districts are moving to that. And hopefully, if everybody will do their part over the next few weeks as we open up our state and we open up our economy, do the little things that it takes to keep the spread of COVID-19 to occur. And hopefully, if all goes well, we'll be able to have that event. So I think it's a matter of our entire community working together. And listen, guys, our community's done a fantastic job, may I say. We're one of 3 counties right now that still does not have a reported case of COVID-19. That's not by accident. I'm not saying there's not been somebody that's not been sick, but there's not been a reported case. So keep up the good work. We're doing a good work here. It's all around us. And I think with the exception of us and maybe Lee County and little old Robinson County up on the Ohio River, we're the only 3 counties left. So keep up the good work. And it's a fantastic job by our local government, our health department, and everybody involved. You have your energy report there to look at. You also, the fundraiser report was canceled. There's been no fundraising because kids haven't been in school. Item G is the superintendent evaluation. Those are the same documents that you received in the past. The district accomplishments, that's something if that's over the last 5 years, that's through the last 2 boards. Those are things that we've done in this school district in the last 5 years. And that's not Jeff Saylor. That is a district leadership team. A lot of people have played very important roles in that. We've got 10 board members, really 11 board members that have played a role in that at one time or another over the last 5 years. Those are our accomplishments as a district. And you should look at that document, and that's something for you to be proud of, and look at the things that's coming, things that's going to be happening here this year as we I know that we're in the middle of one big construction project, but the one thing that our people are really clamoring for is that high school renovation in our athletic facilities. And we're going to begin that discussion here. And it's not something that we're going to put off. Well, we've got a schedule on how we're going to do things. So we're going to be meeting with architects sometime in June to begin that discussion and possibly start that final renovation sometime, maybe before December. And I know that's a little scary out there, but the bottom line is our people expect these renovations. That's what they've expected. That's why the nickel was passed, and we need to try to deliver if at all possible. But you'll see my growth plan that you all approved back in the fall that we agreed to, the evaluation standards and the summative evaluation form. The growth plan tells you the 2 areas that you asked me to work on. So that is supposed to be done at the next meeting, Ms. Rhonda, and that is it for the superintendent's report if there's no questions.
Are there any questions? Okay. So just backing back up to public comments, do we have any calls or additional questions sent in?
I've
No,
heard no
ma'am.
calls.
No calls, and as of right now, let me share the screen here. As of right now, we have had 0 responses for the submitting over the form.
Okay, thanks, Jeremy.
Hmm.
Okay,
And
do we
Ron,
have
the
any?
last thing on the superintendent's evaluation, if you and Donna want to speak to Miss Isaacs, she will help you all in any way, form, or fashion that we need to move forward with that evaluation.
Okay. Anything from board members? Okay, and I guess next we would need a motion to go into closed session if we still need closed session.
And this is something we discussed among a few of us to begin with, and this is for the board members. You all know the items that are listed under closed session. They're private only to board members at this point and to Jonathan, our attorney. And of course, this has to do with possible litigation. And one or two things, if you feel like that there's some questions that you want to ask in private, by law, you're allowed to do that within closed session. But if you've looked at those documents and you feel comfortable with the resolutions as they have been prepared, Jonathan is more than happy to discuss those in open session with us, and we can move forward with an approval of those 2 resolutions. So I guess it would just be a matter to hear from each of the board members right now. Are you okay with doing this in open session? Or is there anybody that would like to discuss it in closed session?
I'm fine in open session.
I'm fine in open session.
I'm fine in open session.
I'm fine too. Thank you.
Me as well.
Okay.
So then we really will just do away with closed session. So really we'll move down to item 12, which is the action that was supposed to come out of closed session. And Jonathan, if you don't care, you're with us. If you would just go over briefly with the board members what these 2 civil action lawsuits involve and what the resolutions involve and what kind of cost that the board would be looking at, which of course is really negligible other than some footwork on our part. So Jonathan, if you would, take the floor and lead us home.
I'll try to keep this quick. Basically, it's litigation and that other districts around the Commonwealth are engaging in. There's 2 separate cases going on. One deals with the Juul, I guess, vaping manufacturer and some other vaping companies. And it's more of a nuisance case against those companies for some of the problems that districts have had in the Commonwealth. And also, some individual students have had, parents. There have been some health issues and things like that. But most districts are looking at it more from a nuisance aspect and the additional time and money spent in trying to take care of some of the discipline issues and some of the trash issues and things like that with those little cartridges that lay around. The other is the opioid litigation, and that is where there's a class action which is trying to recover against some of the manufacturers of some of these opioids and especially in Eastern Kentucky. I mean, it's kind of decimated some of the communities, some of the abuse issues and things like that. I think what they're looking for, of course, I'm not the attorney that's prosecuting these claims on behalf of different school districts. There's a group of attorneys. Ron Johnson out of Louisville is taking care of most of the claims for the districts in Kentucky, but these claims are being raised nationwide. And in the opioid litigation, they're trying to you've got certain children that are born dependent, and as they enter into their school years, there's extra care that's needed with those children to educate them and things. So they're trying to recover some money for those, and just any of the additional extra costs and that may be borne by the district in medical services, things like that, for some of these children that may be born into a dependent situation or have been affected somewhat permanently. by that situation. I don't know the complete, scope of what damages they're trying to recover. I just know that it's an opportunity for the district to join in the litigation. I know there are several other districts throughout the Commonwealth that are engaging in the litigation. The first two that I came aware of that got involved was both Jefferson County and Fayette County. So they're both part of the litigation. Mr. Johnson represents their interests as well. The resolution is basically giving him the authority to act on behalf of the district in pursuing the cost or any cost of the district. His fee comes out of their percentage of whatever he recovers on behalf of the districts, and whatever the proportionate interest is that Estill County may recover, he gets, I think, 33% of that. It's his recovery to pay for his fees, and the costs and things like that come out of the recovery as well. And I don't know if anybody has any questions, but essentially there's no cost to join in. There's also no guaranteed recovery, so we don't know if the districts and if these cases will be successful. But just in case, the district will be able to recover their proportionate share.
Just to add a little bit to that, guys, I know part of the Juul and the vaping thing is about the fact that they have, the advertising has sort of been of such that it is attractive to teens and the children, and there is a vaping problem within our schools. But I think the bigger one for us is the opioid claim, due to the fact that, just as Jonathan said, I'll give you an example. This year at South Irvin, for preschool students that are moving into kindergarten, we saw an increase in the number of students that are developmentally delayed going into kindergarten. And, you just wonder how much of this tracks back to opioid use. We're starting to see more and more kids that are coming from broken families where mom and dad are either have passed because of overdoses, or there's been other situations where they're living with grandparents. So that also has an impact on the family unit. So there's a lot of stuff that goes along with that. And I know I've been in meetings with Donna with the Project Home Project at Markham and Wallace. And I know in one of those meetings that per capita, there are more deaths in Estill County than there are in any other county in the state of Kentucky. And that was from the research that they did as part of another grant dealing with opioid abuse. So I do think we have been impacted, and this is a possibility to be able to provide more resources for our kids at some point in time. I don't know how long this will drag out, but at some point in time, maybe the district could recover some of the costs that it has caused us to incur. So with that being said, if everybody is good with that, there's 2 resolutions to approve. So I think, Rhonda, the recommended motion would be that we would approve the resolutions for the Juul civil lawsuit along with the opioid lawsuit.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I make the motion.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. I've lost track. Is this 10?
That was item number 10.
All right, and that's the last thing. So I guess I would just need a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion.
Real quick before adjournment, Brian is missing for item number 9 on the chat.
Okay. Brian, did you hear Jeremy?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry, I apologize. My computer died and it came on a lot faster than I thought. So I'll approve it.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make the motion to adjourn.
I second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, that would be 11. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for everything.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan, for your time.
Thank you.